What's up, man?
How you doing? Sorry I'm late. I was a scheduling snafu.
What do you know about Brian Schottenheimer?
Everybody likes Brian Schottenheimer. Like, all I hear is positive things about Brian Schottenheimer. It's like, all the discussion about the decision and was it right or was it wrong, is Jerry crazy, etc., is like, everybody says, but no offense to Brian, he's a good coach. He might do really well. So I think it surprised a lot of people because Brian's obviously not out interviewing with other teams. He's not a guy that's on these lists. But, yeah, I think he's a good coach who's been waiting a long time for his shot, and no pun intended, and I think, he knows the team. Like, well, no, but here's the thing, guys. Like, these first-time head coaches that have been coordinators, like, you don't know if Ben Johnson's going to be a good head coach.
Right.
You know if Liam Cohen's going to be a good head coach. Like, Brian Schottenheimer's got as good a chance as any of them to turn out. So I can kind of see why he wanted to keep it in-house. But, I don't know. I also understand why the fans are kind of like, why can't we do a big, wide search like everybody else does?
That's do people around the league scratch their heads as to why the Cowboys operate the way they do with not really wanting to do a widespread head search? They didn't do it the last time either.
I remember.
Two guys.
Yes, and I remember people were surprised then as well. So Jerry has a famous quote, right, about I could find 500 people to come coach his team, and I guess he's practicing what he preaches. Like, he feels like, I think he sees guys like, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh making like in excess of $17, $18 million a year. And I think Jerry feels like that's too much to pay for that position. Like, not that he doesn't have it, but just that's sort of not that's overdoing it. And that's just the way he feels. And so I think, that's why you see him narrow it down a little bit like that.
Talking with Dan Graziano here on 105 through the Fan. Dan, why? One of the questions we've asked of people is why not Kellen Moore then? Like, if they want to go familiarity and offensive mind, why wasn't it Kellen Moore?
Sure, good question, because that seemed to make a lot of sense given his connections there. I don't know the state of that relationship, right, how it ended. I hadn't heard that it was bad, but I know he and Mike McCarthy had a difference of opinion when they parted ways. Could it be that Kellen has some bitterness in his memory about that? Could it be that something lingered with the Cowboys and maybe they just felt like the continuity that Schottenheimer represented was more what they wanted than going back to Kellen? They did make a decision a couple years ago to move on from Kellen for whatever reason. So obviously there was something about him that wasn't, screaming for them to keep him there in their minds. So they've been working with Brian Schottenheimer a while. They like him. A lot. The Jones family relationships matter a lot, right? Jason Garrett was kind of part of the family for a while, and that might have kept him there longer than I think a lot of people maybe expected. So maybe they have a comfort level with Brian Schottenheimer. They enjoy working with him, and they find him a guy that they believe in by virtue of just the time they've spent.
Dan Graziano, ESPN here on The Fan. What surprised you about the Hall of Fame announcements last night?
So, yeah, I saw Darren Woodson here yesterday. He didn't sound like he was very hopeful, but the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is like a.
Are you a voter?
No, it's like a pet peeve of mine. Not because I'm not a voter, but just because I don't like their process. I was a baseball Hall of Fame voter for years when I covered that sport, and that I always felt like we got a lot of grief for. But like, you get a ballot in the mail, you mail it back in, and if 75% of them say yes, the guy's in. Right? This is like 50 people get together in a secret room once a year and like twist each other's arms, right? It's like, it's so filthy. Like, I don't understand why they get away with it and why it's never been overhauled. So in terms of the selections, like, the guys who got in seem like they deserve to get in, but their rules and the process is so strange that I don't know if you're allowed to put 5 in, why not put 5 in? Like, that there seemed like there are some other guys that could have gotten that 5th spot.
Were you stunned that more stunned that Eli or Vinatieri didn't get in?
I didn't think Eli was going to get in first ballot. I think there's enough debate over him among that group and people in general about whether I think he gets in eventually, but it didn't seem like he was enough of a slam dunk to merit first ballot. As the parent of a kicker, I was pulling for Vinatieri. I know how much it would have meant to my son, who's a Division III kicker up in Maine at Colby College, and. But it is tough. The kickers and punters have not historically gotten a lot of love in that room. I think Vinatieri gets in eventually, but again, I'm not in there. I don't know.
Is Orlovsky really that weird of an eater?
Yes, and proudly. It's so weird. Like, he'll insist that he's right. which is bizarre. But no, his food takes are very upsetting. It's one of the, I think, most irresponsible things we do at ESPN is let him go on the air and talk about food.
Does McCarthy get another job?
That's a good question. I don't know. He's in his 60s, right? And that's tough. Like, I know Pete Carroll bounced back with the Raiders, but I was surprised by that as well. McCarthy, there was talk of the Saints being interested, but they never actually reached out. Like, that was all, imagined. Like he was free to interview for 2 weeks, and it still is, by the way, and the Saints never did it. So, I don't know. I think it's been a while since he won a championship. And what he did in Dallas for 3 years with 12 wins 3 years in a row, I think that's impressive. But I also think that he's seen as someone whose offense maybe, people are looking for newer ideas. And I think that may be what holds him back from getting another job.
Would you like some developing news, Dan Graziano?
Please.
Bruce Feldman, the Cowboys are targeting K-State OC and O-line coach Connor Riley to become their new offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Who's that?
He coached Cooper Beebe, I guess, right, at Kansas State, so there's some familiarity there. Yeah, we were talking about that this morning. That's interesting that Feldman got it. I was trying to get that confirmed. But yes, he is, I think that they're staffing-wise, they got on this a little bit late, so they might have to be doing some sort of outside-the-box stuff, but he has familiarity with their right, exactly. He has familiarity with one of their key offensive linemen, and he's somebody obviously that they and or Brian Schottenheimer feel is a prospect.
Thank you, Dan. Enjoy the weekend.
My pleasure.